Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. Facebook now has a war room, quite a step for a company set up to rate the attractiveness of fellow college students. Gender studies has been taken off the university curriculum in Hungary. We speak to the head of the gender studies department at one of Hungary's most prestigious schools. The US Open champ gets a date with her celebrity crush thanks to Ellen, and the internet loved how it happened. All right, top of our news feed, the war room. That's what Facebook are calling the office, where a team of 20 or so people will monitor the site for fake news, misinformation, and anything that may influence upcoming elections. They're focused on Brazil and the US midterms right now, but if they feel the project is successful, it could be expanded. The question is, how will they judge success?
This is the inside of Facebook's new war room, a hub to fight fake accounts, weed out fake news, and generally prevent interference ahead of the US midterms.
In this room, there's a rotating staff of about 24 people who represent the 20,000 people around Facebook who are working on elections. These people represent teams such as threat intel, operations, data scientists, research, and we come into this room to streamline communication and decision making.
Facebook has faced severe criticism for its role in spreading misinformation during the US presidential election in 2016. Back then, the CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, dismissed it as crazy to suggest the site affected voters. But he since had a change of heart, and Facebook is now catching up.
We have actually made huge advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we have been able to block, in a recent 6-month period, 1.3 billion fake accounts from forming. And this has been really important because since we've been able to block fake accounts, normally, even at the moment that they were created in the first place, we've been able to stop them before they've been able to do any harm.
The war room will first tackle the presidential elections in Brazil, scheduled for later this month, and then the US midterm elections on 6 November. It will operate across Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp.
So internally, we're monitoring things such as reports from users of election-related content that either violates our community standards, such as hate speech or voter suppression.
They hope the model could also be used in future around the world.
And we want to make sure that we have a high level of agility and a high level of speed, because we know in an election every moment counts, and that's why we're also committed to making sure we're getting it right this time. We are laser focused, and everybody across the company has a deep sense of responsibility to make sure that our platforms are safe and secure for all elections around the world.
But it is a huge challenge. In just the past week, Facebook removed 559 pages and 251 accounts in the US for using fake identities and coordinating misinformation campaigns. The Associated Press will help identify and debunk false and misleading stories on Facebook. In another data sample from Brazil, 56% of the most shared images on WhatsApp were misleading. Only 8% of the 50 most widely shared images were considered fully truthful. Critics say that the company should make its political advertising more transparent. Then users will know who is behind some of the site's most divisive content. Until then, the war room may continue to fight a losing battle.
The Hungarian government of Viktor Orbán has stopped universities in the country from teaching gender studies. The schools have been told there is no demand for a genderologist in the jobs market. But this is part of something far deeper in Hungarian society and its continuing march to the right. So earlier I spoke to Professor Andrea Petto, who teaches the subject at the Central European University in Budapest. And I asked her if it was correct that gender studies graduates are no use in the jobs market.
Gender studies will not be announced from next autumn as a study program. The government has not given any considerable argument why they are actually doing that. The first statement was about that there is no need on the labor market for gender studies graduates. The next cohort of gender studies students will actually graduate in summer 2019. And honestly, nobody can forecast what the labor market would look like half a year from now. As far as Central European University is concerned, we have been teaching this study program from 2006, and we have more than 140 graduates, and the labor market situation of these graduates are excellent. 40% of them are getting jobs in businesses, in governments, and only 10% in international NGOs, which actually proves that our gender studies scholars are and professionals are making the change, and they are in excellent position in the labor market.
Without delving too deep into the conspiracy theories surrounding people like George Soros and the Hungarian universities, how much do you think that is playing into the decision by Viktor Orbán?
Hungary serves as a laboratory. With my colleague Zoltán Vasali, we wrote an article in the Open Democracy showing that Hungary is a test case. Certain policies and policy provisions had been tested here in Hungary. So after the first draft decree had been leaked by the Hungarian government on the 1st of August, then several other far-right student organizations and institutions immediately demanded the revoking of gender studies teaching programs in other countries. So what we see is a global trend attacking the freedom of education, autonomy of higher education, and liberal values.
Do you see this being reversed? Can gender studies be taught again in Hungarian universities, do you think, in the future, if Viktor Orbán's party is voted out?
I'm more optimistic than that, because obviously we will resubmit the accreditation of gender studies at Central European University, and then we will see how the professional body, which is the Hungarian Accreditation Committee, which had not been consulted when this decision was made. I'm happy to see that we are not alone, because there are so much support for us internationally and also inside Hungary. The Hungarian Rectors Conference, the different university leaders expressed their support for gender studies and for the autonomy of education.
And next up, we want to take you into the opaque world of private defence contractors. This next piece from Omar will tell you what they are and pose the question, should more be done to try and regulate their use?
Is it possible to rent an army to help fight a war, invade a city, or intervene in a crisis? George W. Bush did it in Afghanistan and then again in Iraq. Putin has done it in Syria. Even actor and activist Mia Farrow explored the possibility of hiring a private military to intervene in the Darfur crisis in 2008. So, what is a private army anyway? Private military contractors, or PMCs, are companies that have armed military operatives for hire. The global industry for private armies is worth more than $200 billion. States, multinational corporations, and even individuals can rent a soldier for $500 to $750 a day. They can do anything from assisting in conflict to protecting officials and natural resources such as oil fields, training military, or simply providing logistics. Private armies are similar to mercenaries that have existed for centuries. While mercenaries are uncontrolled individuals, PMCs are regulated corporate businesses who can legally hire mercenaries. In the 1990s, private armies boomed when states started to downsize their militaries after the end of the Cold War. These private corporations hired laid-off soldiers, and states began outsourcing some of their military functions to private contractors. And soon it began to change the course of wars. In 1995, Sierra Leone was in the midst of a civil war, and the rebels were going to overtake the government and the capital, Freetown. But a few months later, everything changed. the government regained control and drove the rebels out after the state had hired Executive Outcomes, a South African PMC with helicopters and artillery. But the use of PMCs has always been controversial. Critics say it allows governments to participate in questionable activity without getting their hands dirty. Take Blackwater, now called Academy, a US-based PMC founded by ex-Navy SEAL Eric Prince. Soon after 9/11, President Bush got the CIA to form a top-secret assassination unit to find and kill al-Qaeda operatives, and the CIA decided to outsource the task to Blackwater. Running operations through Blackwater gave the CIA power to abduct or kill people with no one in the government held responsible. During the war in Afghanistan and the invasion of Iraq, there was one private contractor for every US soldier on the ground. After 2009, that number tripled. They were used to protect diplomats, provide logistics support, and though they weren't designed for combat, they did respond to hostilities. Then there's also the issue of PMCs grossly violating human rights. This leaked 2005 trophy video of presumed Aegis Defense Services operatives shooting civilians at random in Iraq while listening to an Elvis Presley song sparked an international outcry. In 2007, 4 Blackwater guards were involved in a shootout in Iraq, leading to the death of 17 civilians. The Iraqi government called the civilian deaths a killing, but due to the murky legal status of the contractors, they couldn't be prosecuted under Iraqi law. Later that year, a congressional report linked Blackwater to 195 shootings in Iraq. And it's not just civilians that are at risk. PMCs have been accused of being so profit-driven that they neglect security and put their own employees at risk. Incidents like these raise questions around the legal status, management, and accountabilities of PMCs. Private militaries are criticized for performing state functions that aren't regulated by frameworks set up to vet employees and weapons or monitor their activities. In 2008, the Montreux document was launched by the Red Cross and guides state use of private military and security companies. But the document is not legally binding and doesn't hold states or PMCs accountable. So should states be allowed to hire private armies?
Okay, let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Friday. The Guardian are reporting that there's been a big slowdown in the amount of people around the world getting access to the internet. In 2007, access to the net was growing at 19%. It's currently growing at just 6%. And who were most disenfranchised? Women and the rural poor. Now, the reporting suggests that connectivity around the world must become cheaper to allow for the billions who don't have access to the web to have the same opportunity as the rest of us. More embarrassing headlines for the Prime Minister of Australia. Scott Morrison forgot to renew the domain name scottmorrison.com.au. Then a guy called Jack Gennison bought it and wrote, "So the PM forgot to renew his website and it expired today. The most fun I've had with $50 in a long time." And he did this to the site, playing a song called Scotty Doesn't Know. It's about being unfaithful and it's by a band called Lustra. And when I checked earlier, the site was still playing the song. And this photo is from when the dude, Donnie and Walter got back together for the 20th anniversary of The Big Lebowski. And if 80% of the things I just said don't make any sense to you, then I recommend you watch the Coen Brothers classic, ASAP. Now, Naomi Osaka is the US Open champ, and she was on the US talk show champ Ellen DeGeneres' show the other day and was asked a question that led to some internet magic.
Celebrity crush?
I don't know his name, but he was in Black Panther, but he was the villain.
Oh, Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Do you want me to text him right now?
No.
I will.
So Ellen was as good as her word, kind of. She tweeted a picture of Michael B. Jordan to Naomi Osaka for her birthday. Now this is it. Ooh, shiny. To which Naomi responded with a wailing face and the words, "Please block me." And then Michael B. got involved writing, "This one is better and more recent. LOL. Smiley face. Happy belated birthday, Naomi. But seriously, I want to invite you to the Creed 2 premiere as a birthday present. Present emoji." Then it was back to Ellen, who wrote, "You're welcome, Naomi." And all this was rounded off by Naomi, who wrote, "LOL, what is going on? Skull emoji, crying laughing emoji, question mark, question mark, question mark. Thanks for the birthday wishes. If you're serious, I would totally want to go. Cuddly smiley face, prayer hands." Not bad, Naomi, a Grand Slam champ and now a trip to a film premiere with your celeb crush. Solid 2018 so far. And that is all from the Newsfeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again soon.